What is going on, guys? Ben here, back with another video. I have the Nintendo Switch 2 and we're going to review it today. I'm going to talk about the performance as somebody who has used the ROG Ally, the Ally X, the Steam Deck OLED, pretty much every single handheld, like so many handhelds, and I absolutely love this space. But this is the OG, isn't it? This is the OG, original gangster. That means that this guy is a Crip, okay? It's the most refined yet slightly boring handheld that you can get. And in this video, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I mean by that and why I still will keep this device, but I'm also a little hesitant as to the future of what this device can offer. So without further ado, let's talk about the Switch 2. So the Nintendo Switch 2, this is the successor to the original Nintendo Switch. I've owned the original and the OLED, and I definitely love that device for its simplicity and the first-party exclusives that came with a Nintendo device, like Mario and Zelda, games like that. Absolutely love the first-party Nintendo games. They are refined masterpieces. There is no debating it. Kids, adults, even older people, even dead people can dream about it when they're in heaven. In hell, I don't think dreaming is as easy, but definitely the older people who died and are in heaven, they're thinking about the Nintendo Switch and what it meant, and the GameCube, the N64, the Wii, of course, and my favorite of all, the Wii U. No, but actually I do like the Wii U quite a lot. I think it was ahead of its time. But this device is the successor to the Nintendo Switch, and as the successor, it had one job: better in every single way, and it delivered. As a piece of hardware, this device is practically flawless in terms of a handheld gaming device. It has a very powerful chip in here, comparable, a little actually more powerful than the Steam Deck, so it's between like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally in terms of power. But that doesn't mean that it looks a little better than the Steam Deck and a little worse than the ROG Ally X. Because devices like this have games that are optimized specifically for the device running on it, like the Switch, the device can run games and look a lot more beautiful, especially with the implementation of DLSS and certain technologies like that. Developers are spending, months working on Switch 2 specific games so that they run perfectly on this hardware, and a good example of that would be Cyberpunk 2077. I own Cyberpunk on my Steam library and have played it on my Steam Deck OLED and ROG Ally X, and I have to say, it has never looked better than what it looks like on my Switch 2. With the ROG Ally X, I am hitting consistent 60 FPS, but the FSR implementation on Cyberpunk makes it look really washed out and grainy. And then on the Steam Deck OLED, it just isn't a comparison. In terms of image quality and frame rate, the Switch 2 blows it out of the water, especially with its VRR display, which we will get to in a moment. But that is just one example of a game that, yes, it is not as powerful of a device as an ROG Ally X, but it tends to look a little better and run a little smoother because of that hardware and developer implementation and them coinciding together to make it look as pretty and beautiful and run as best as possible. So the device is a 7.9 inch display, the biggest handheld I've ever owned in terms of display surface area, and I absolutely love this display. This display is getting a little bit of clowning because, oh, it's not bright enough or it's not actual HDR. I mean, yes, but the display is so vibrant and colorful and poppy and bright enough. 450 nits is practically 500 nits, and that's pretty average for most gaming handhelds. I think it is a more beautiful display than the ROG Ally X, and I would say that the Steam Deck OLED is probably a little better for certain titles, like Celeste, for instance, or 2D platformers. I think that those, rich poppy blacks make those 2D platformers really pop. But most games look better on this device, especially AAA titles like Cyberpunk and Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I'm really blown away by the display. I think that sharp 1080p makes it look incredible, and just I can't stop looking at it. I want to pick it up and look at the screen all the time, and that is such a breath of fresh air comparative to the original Nintendo Switch and even the Nintendo Switch OLED. People are comparing the Nintendo Switch OLED with this device, and I don't have two side by side to compare, but they're saying that the Switch OLED is brighter. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that was a 400 nit device and this is 450 nits, but because OLED, it makes it look brighter. But actually, in terms of nits, this is a little bit brighter. I think anybody getting this display will love it no matter what. They're going to be like, this is great, so much better than the original Switch. I'm so glad I upgraded because of this display, blah, blah, right? So I'm really happy with the display, and I think long term, this sort of implementation of a 1080p, 120 FPS screen with VRR is going to allow it for the next decade to keep up with certain titles coming out for sure. Another point I wanted to touch on was the controls. So in terms of the controls, the Nintendo Switch kind of ditches the rest of the crowd and doesn't really focus on ergonomics, but somehow it does work. So the way that they put the buttons on this device, they move them up rather than, because the device is bigger, it's a bigger Joy-Con. They could have just spread it out and made it, kept it in the same positions as the original Switch, but just made them bigger. That would not have been as ergonomic. So what they did is they moved the thumbsticks and the buttons up a little bit. Is it as ergonomic as the Steam Deck OLED? Absolutely not. Is it even as ergonomic as the ROG Ally X? No. But because it is so light and so big, I feel like I'm not really thinking about how it feels in my hand too often. I do want to get grips for it because I do have pretty big hands, but for now, I'm totally fine with it. It's not as frustrating as like the original ROG Ally, where the side, like bottom of the device was like sharp, so it kind of dug into your palms. Like clearly there was a ton of R&D involved in creating this, so that even though it is that sort of flat back design, it still was pretty comfortable. So I'm relatively happy with the controls. In terms of buttons, they're quiet, which is really nice, not annoying people around you. I really like the size of these thumbsticks. They're much bigger than normal, a little bigger than the original Switch, but a little smaller than something like the Steam Deck OLED or a normal Xbox controller. But they work really nice and they're so cute, they're just these cute little buttons. And I got these thumb grips on them. I can put them in the link below in the description. In terms of controls, ergonomics, and the screen, I'm quite happy with the device. It feels premium. It feels more premium than any other handheld I've ever owned, and it is cheaper than the Steam Deck OLED, than the ROG Ally, the Ally X, the One X Player F1 Pro. That you can get two of these for one of those. But yeah, this device is very premium because it's sort of like an Apple device, right? Like you're spending the same amount of money, but you're getting a more premium experience. But the caveat to all of that is that the games are very expensive. I don't really understand why everyone is so upset about this, okay? Yes, an $80 game is annoying. You can decide whether or not you think it's worth it. For me, I would literally spend $5,000 on Elden Ring, okay? If Elden Ring was $5,000, I would buy it for $5,000. I'm not even kidding you. I know that's insane, but it is a game that is gonna be with me for the rest of my life. I think it's an investment. I think it brings me immense joy. And the way that the world was built with all of the thousands of man hours, I feel like it was a harder to create thing than like a car in a lot of ways. Maybe not that, but I do feel like $5,000 is what I feel like that game is worth. I'm very happy that it's only $60, but I'm saying in terms of value proposition, I think that game is worth $5,000, even $10,000. I'm not even kidding you. Mario Kart World is probably worth $80. It's a fun time, but it's not going to be like a life-changing experience. So you have to decide as the consumer, do I want to spend this money? What is the value that this game is going to bring me? And then you can make that decision rather than getting so pissed off. Like, this is the industry trend. Games are more hard to make. They take a lot more time to create, and they are expensive to market, all of the things. Gaming companies go out of business because they can't afford to pay their employees, or and they go out of business. So I just feel like getting so up in arms about the change in price, I don't like that it's Nintendo doing it because they're so astronomically wealthy that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for them to start doing it. Plus, especially with all of the, relations that people have with Nintendo that make them upset with the company in general. I can see why it's upsetting, but you as a consumer have to make that choice with anything. Oh, do I want that burrito that's $15? I'm not sure. So I did buy Mario Kart World because I did think it was worth $80 because it is a refined masterclass in a Mario Kart game. I am freaking addicted to this game. This game is so fun. I actually really enjoy Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I got bored with it. Grand Tour and Knockout Tour, these sort of game modes with the online, like this game is robust and no bugs or anything. It's just a refined gaming experience. It's fast paced. And it's just really addicting. It's just a really fun, addicting, beautifully made game too. I think that the graphics pop off this screen where you're just kind of blown away that you're playing such a beautiful game on a handheld gaming device. I am really enjoying it, and I'm happy that I spent the $80. I think that the game is fun and well made, and I think it's worth $80. But you may not feel that way, and that's okay. So I want to talk about games, and games on this device is the one caveat that I am actually feeling a little FOMO for. So I sold my other gaming handheld devices for this device to just use this exclusively for the last week. I am missing some old games that I like to play. So there's a lot of games that I played on my Steam Deck that I no longer have access to on a device like this. And I'm getting a little bit of FOMO, I can't lie, especially my emulators with PS2 and Dragon Ball Z and all these other emulators. I can really only emulate Nintendo games on this device with a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, and that is a little bit of FOMO feeling for me. I also am not getting my Sleeping Dogs or some of the old PC games that I used to play. Like, I'm exclusively on this device, and I have a pretty extensive Nintendo Switch library. I think I have close to 50 games on my Nintendo Switch account from all the years I played on my original Nintendo Switch, but half of those are Nintendo games. And unless you're a diehard Nintendo fan, which I'm not a diehard Nintendo fan, but I definitely love Nintendo games, especially on the new device. I'm like very enthralled right now, but I can see myself getting bored if newer, better games don't come out for it sooner. As well, it would be nice to get some remasters for older games that would never be able to run on the original Nintendo Switch, but would run beautifully on this device, like Sleeping Dogs, like Grand Theft Auto 5, like some of these bigger games that absolutely couldn't run on the Switch, but can run on this device. I think that they should remaster them and bring them to this thing, and then it could be like the one-stop shop for gaming, because you do get those Nintendo exclusives, and maybe even PlayStation and Xbox exclusives move over to this device. There's no reason to get anything else besides this device. But the lack of choice with games on this device, especially knowing as most games on this device are not updated with the Switch 2 version, and it is quite disappointing. For instance, Dark Souls Remastered. It was one of my most played games on my original Nintendo Switch. I absolutely love Dark Souls, as you guys know. I'm a big Dark Souls guy. The Nintendo Switch 2 runs it at 720p, 30 frames per second. I can guarantee that this device can probably run it at 1080p, 120 FPS with its current hardware, if it were optimized correctly. Like my Steam Deck OLED or my ROG Ally X could do that. I know that this device is capable of it, but there's no update. And that's the same story for so many games out there right now. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I am getting FOMO. I want more games to come out for it. But I am also making myself play games that I wouldn't normally play, like a lot of these really great Nintendo games, and I'm enjoying myself. So hopefully in the future this gets resolved with some updates and patches and some newer exciting titles. But for the time being, yeah, it's fine. Yes, you're going to be paying a little bit more for games on this device, but the initial cost is $450 for the device, and you could probably buy one used in a couple months for $400 or $350 to $400. So I don't really see why it would be a major deal to just get this device and skip the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally X. But if you want to tinker a little bit more with your device and you like PCs like me, maybe the Steam Deck OLED would be a better choice. And you also don't get Elden Ring on this device just yet. Really excited for that to come out. Did you guys know that I like Elden Ring? I think I might have mentioned that. I said it was worth $5,000. Jesus Christ. I do mean that though, but it is a little cringe. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. These are just my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2. Right now, can't stop picking up and playing it. I'm addicted to it. So if you want to be addicted to something rather than work and, getting things done in life, this is the device for you. Please like, comment, subscribe. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers. It means so much to me, guys, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.